Hello and welcome. My name is Matthew Rawcliffe and I'm a professional choreographer and dancer and I work for the Lowry. And as part of what the Lowry do, we run the You Dance Northwest platform, which is the national festival for young people's dance. And we also run a Centre for Advanced Training in Dance scheme, or a CAT scheme. And these are pre-vocational dance training courses which go all around the UK. And today I'm going to lead a workshop for you. I trained at the CAT actually, so before I did my professional training I was on the Lowry CAT. Then I went to train, and while I was doing that I competed in the BBC Young Dancer competition and won the contemporary category and went on to be a grand finalist. And since leaving school I have worked in a lot of theatre, dance theatre, physical theatre. I'm really interested in that kind of work, but I also perform as a dancer and make contemporary dance theatre work. And I'm going to lead you through a kind of choreographic workshop today. So, I want us to think about and answer the question through this workshop of, is it possible to make dance without dancers? How can a choreographer make a piece if you have no dancers and you're not making on yourself? So that's what we're going to look at. And before we go more into it, I just have a quick warm-up game thing that I want us to do. So I want you to go and get your bag. So if you're in the studio, go and grab the bag you came with. If you're at home, then maybe grab your school bag or your weekend bag, the bag you use most, but go get it and bring it back to the space with you. And I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I just want you to look through the bag as if you have no idea who it belongs to, and just think about what kind of story it's already telling. All these things in the bag, like what kind of person might own these things. So for instance, the difference between a bag that's got a wallet in with a £20 note and a bag that's got some loose change in might tell very different stories. Or a bag that's full of science books compared to a bag that's full of sweet wrappers. It's two very different stories. So forget that you know who it belongs to and see if you can kind of create the story yourself. If you've not got your bag, pause the video and go and get it. I'm going to set a 1 minute timer, look through your bag and see who it might belong to. 3, 2, 1, go. There we go. Hopefully you've just created a little story for yourself about who this person is. And if not, quickly try and process everything you just went through and just make some decisions over whether this is a confident person, a shy person, whether it's someone who's very loving, whether it's someone who's hateful, or I know it's hard, but it's obviously your things. Yeah, see if you can get lost in a fantasy about this person. And now I'm going to give us 1 minute again, and we're just going to move as if we were that person. So just make some, they don't have to be amazing, big creative decisions, something really simple like, this is a person that has a very 9 to 5 simple job. Just that is enough. And then you can do 1 minute of movement based on how that person maybe holds themselves. 1 minute again, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And you can really use the space you're in. If you still have your objects, you can even dance with them. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to explore a person now. And I do that warm-up game to kind of show you how powerful objects can be and how much storytelling they already kind of have in them. When I make dance, I really think of it as storytelling, even if I'm not telling a story about a man that does a thing and then goes home. You know, it doesn't have to be that literal of a story, but I think it's really important that I consider, and that now I'm asking you to become the choreographers for the next 10-15 minutes, and I want you to think about how the audience experience the show. And I think it's something we don't talk about enough, right? It's not just about us, it has to be about us and the people that we're reaching. So the first thing I want you to do now for our bigger projects that we're going to work on is decide your favourite film or movie or series or book, something that has a story and that kind of follows a journey. Yeah. So just really quickly, favourite film, book, movie or TV series. Great. And now that you've got it, we're going to use that for the rest of the session as our kind of source material. And what I want us to do is make a dance show, as I said, with no dancers, with no human beings involved. And we're going to base it on whatever you've chosen. And we're going to put it in something. So I'm going to use a tin. I've got my little queen tin. But just a bag or a box, even the thing you've brought your sandwiches in is probably fine. But just find a little container and we're going to work. It's also, if you've not got a pen and paper, go and grab one. And just that is going to be enough. And we're going to start making things that we're going to fill our box with. And hopefully we've got a whole show, dance show thing by the end of it that can be experienced by just opening our box. And I think, like I was talking about audience before, let's say the target audience is someone that's never experienced your favourite film, if that's what you've picked. So if your favourite film was The Wizard of Oz, the audience that you're making this show for is someone that doesn't know anything about The Wizard of Oz. And your mission is to make it even more magical, even more special, to really enhance the experience. I want to tell you about this company, if you haven't heard of them, called Secret Cinema, and they make immersive theatre work. And what they do, and I think they're one of the most exciting companies in the UK. Like they just did a Stranger Things experience. They've also done James Bond, Star Wars, Moulin Rouge, Dirty Dancing, other things like that. So they do these really big films, but basically when you go to the event, you have like a 3-hour show where you can just be in the world of the film. So for the Star Wars thing, you got to fly around spaceships and be on all these planets and meet all the characters in scenes that you've never seen before, and then you sit down at the end of it and watch one of the films. And it's like the most magical, amazing experience. And I'm really inspired by their work. I think it's amazing. And I wonder, in dance, like, how we can do something like that. I think it's really cool and exciting. So yeah, what I want us to do now is a little bit of that. The box that you're making is going to be something you could give to someone before they watch The Wizard of Oz. And then when they watch it, it's going to be like 1,000 times better because of everything you prepared them with. So that's the idea. Yeah, and I'm going to work with the example of the Little Mermaid. That's going to be my favourite, maybe more the like book with its dark twistedness. So, this is a step-by-step guide, and we're going to have 3 steps. So I'll try and be quite quick and clear with them. So step number 1 is I want you to make an instruction for your audience member. So each thing you make just has to be something that can go in your box. So if all you've got is a pen and paper, you can just rip out some paper and then put it in. Maybe if you're at home and you've got more stuff lying around, you want to go root through the recycling or go in your craft drawer if you've got one, that's also really welcome. But all you need is a pen and paper. And the instruction that I want you to give is just something that makes your audience member move. So my first way of answering this question of how to make dance without any dancers is to make the audience become the dancers, right? So it can be a really simple instruction. So for my example of the Little Mermaid, I'm thinking about how I think it would be, what would be an exciting thing to happen to you before you watch the Little Mermaid. And I thought, really simply, wouldn't it be cool if the audience got wet and they had the experience of being a wet human in a dry world, which is kind of like a switch of how the Little Mermaid experiences wanting to be a dry human but being in a wet world. Anyway, I thought it was kind of cool. So I've made a really simple instruction. I just went and grabbed a bottle of water and I've labelled it pour over head. So my first object is really simple. I open my tin, I'm just going to pop that inside, and that's my first part of my show, is an instruction. I'm going to give a few more examples in case you're struggling. Yeah, so if your favourite film was Elf and you were working with Elf, it could be really simple. The instruction guide could be how to make a hot chocolate, because maybe it feels a little bit cozier just to experience Elf with the perfect hot chocolate. If your favourite film was The Lion King and you think about this like iconic sunrise scene, you might actually seal your box with a label that says, please only open me at sunrise. And then you know that the person's going to experience this thing as the sun is coming up in this really kind of magical filmic moment. Yeah, other examples. Oh yeah, you could make them go somewhere. It could be something about a location. So if your favourite book, well I know it's a play, was Romeo and Juliet, then your instruction could be to go on a walk and find 2 houses right next to each other that look completely different. So maybe one's super old and falling apart and one's like brand new and beautiful and really fancy. And maybe experiencing this book or play that's about 2 households that are in very different states and are in a real state of conflict. If you had a visual aid that was like physically in front of you in geography, in the world, and maybe that would be a really exciting way to have your first experience of Romeo and Juliet. I don't know. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes now, and I just want you to make an instruction for your audience member, write it down, stick it on something if it needs it, and just put it in your box. So hopefully you've managed to make something. Now step 2. So this one, the purpose of it was to make the audience member do something, so to make them move, and they were going to become the dancer. And now we're going to do a physical exercise, so we are going to move in order to make something. So the idea is that you would leave a trace behind, and that's what's going to go in your box. So like a really classic example would be if you were going to dance with paint on your feet on some sheets of paper, you could then leave the room, obviously you'd make a mess, but if someone came into that room, they could see the traces of your dance. So it's kind of that kind of thing that I want us to do. But first, I want you to pick either your favourite character from whatever you've chosen, or the character that kind of speaks to you the most. So for me, with the Little Mermaid, I'm going to pick Ariel just because it's nice and easy, because she's the protagonist. And then I want you to identify what their key state of emotion is, or what's going through their head through the majority of the action, the journey. So for Ariel, I've decided that it's longing, right? or desire. She longs to be human, to be able to walk and go about life as a human. I'm going to say she experiences that at like a level 10. Like, she does quite a high level of longing to want to be a human, otherwise The Little Mermaid wouldn't be a very good story. And I'm going to up that to 100. So whatever you've picked, you've got to take it up to a level of 100 so it becomes an obsession. Like, it's all that's going through her head. I'm imagining my version of Ariel, the longing just fully consumes her, like it's really sending her crazy. And that's going to be how we move. Don't overthink it. Sometimes your first reaction is your best, because obvious isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay, so my example for The Little Mermaid, I've got my pen and paper here. I'm going to move with my pen, and I'm going to try and draw feet, because I think if there's one image that's going through Ariel's head, it's probably feet, right? She wants to get rid of her mermaid fins and have human feet. But I'm going to do it at level 100. So rather than like nicely drawing feet, I'm going to really draw, so I'll try and show you, as if it's all that's going through my head. All that's going through my head is this longing, this desire to be a human. You ready? Let's see what happens. Okay, that wasn't very easy. So here now we've got my piece of paper, which I've done drawing many feet in a crazy way. I'm going to roll it up, and that's going to be the second object to go in my little tin. And the idea really is that the object has its own physicality. It becomes a dancer because you invested so much physicality into it. Or that's my hypothesis. I'm going to give you some other examples. So if you've picked Harry Potter, let's say his main emotion is grief, right? Especially at the start of the series, it's grief for his parents. So let's say your object was going to be a photo of his parents. But you need to make it move. It needs to become a dancer. And it needs to kind of be able to tell a story. So if he's experiencing grief at level 100, I want to imagine that this photo is something he takes with him every day, that never leaves his side, that he looks at every morning, every night, every afternoon. So of course then I've got something really physical to play with, because I can make it worn and torn and folded and stained and have bits of food on that have been rubbed off again and scratched, and so that I can really see that this thing has lived for like 12 years, you know, and has really had its own life. And then I think it's a super interesting idea. And of course, with something like that, maybe you can't do it in the space you have, but it's fine if you just want to write down your ideas. But I think it's good to, even if you can't physically achieve them, like imagine you've got the biggest budget in the world, what would you make? And that's still a really exciting way of creating, because the idea itself will be something exciting and interesting if you're excited and interested in it. Yeah, and it's actually much harder if the main emotion that they're experiencing is a happy one, right? Because it's much easier to like be obsessed with something that's darker. So let's say you've picked Charlie from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'd say the main emotion consuming him is probably love or kindness or care for family, and those are really hard things to upcycle. But let's go with our example. So let's say that Charlie is experiencing kindness at a level 100, like he's constantly fixated over the need to be kind. Then maybe what I would make is I'd take my pen and paper and I would make a birthday card that he was giving to one of his family members. And it can still have such an exciting physical life. It can still become a dancer, right? Because it's so clear, it's so easy to see the difference between a handmade birthday card that someone did in a second and a handmade birthday card that took someone weeks. And that's definitely the kind of birthday card that Charlie would be making this person who's obsessed with kindness. I think that it would be beautifully detailed and hand-drawn with a really long letter and poem made. And then the care that you put into your physicality as you make it will speak for itself as a dance. Step 2 is make an object that becomes a dancer. Great. So now, if you go back to your box, you should have one thing where you're making your audience move, so the audience becomes the dancer, and your second object should be a dancer itself, so should have its own kind of movement quality, like my crazy feet drawing. So now the third and last thing, if you've reached this stage, congratulations, because I know this is not an easy workshop. The third and last thing that we're going to do is dance, hooray! So very similar to what we did at the start, using the exact same principle we were just working with of the main character and thinking about their emotional landscape, what they're going through. You're going to do a dance based on that, and you're going to film it or ask someone to film it for you. So if you've got a phone or someone's got a camera that you're with, just ask them to film you doing your dance just like we did at the start. You can just dance for a minute based on those emotions and what you feel like that person would be experiencing. It's exactly what we did at the start with the bag. But of course, this is a dance show without any dancers, so you're not allowed to use that dance in your box. And of course, you probably don't want to put your phone in the box if you're going to be sending it to an audience member on the other side of the country, which of course you're not, but you could do if you wanted to and if you're proud of what you've made. So once you've done your film, I'm going to leave you with this so you can kind of do it in your own time. Step 3, film your dance, and then if it's on your phone, you can go through on pause and pick like 3 of your favourite screenshots. And if you've got access to a printer, you can actually just print them out and put them in your box. And if you've not got access to a printer, pause on each one. You can bring out your pen and paper and you can make copies of them. As you've seen with my feet, I'm not the world's best drawer, so I've printed mine out. And I actually went on location because I live by some nice water. So these are my 3 Little Mermaid inspired dances. Photography that I shot by some water. So this was from a long improvisation that I did. I went for like 2 or 3 minutes. In fact, I paused at the 3 moments that I thought spoke to the emotion the best, and I went and printed them out. And now in my box, the last element is the actual dance show, let's say, is the performance, but captured from these still moments in time. You could even put some notes on the back if you wanted to talk about what this move represents or why you chose whatever you're wearing or anything like that. You could let your audience know. And now you can seal it up, and I think we have successfully created a dance show in a box using no dancers, which I think is a really exciting way of making dance. I'm going to just round off the session, but if you want to do it now, here is your chance to pause and do step 3. Okay, so to finish, congratulations for doing this. Because I think it's a bit wild and wacky, which I think is great. The reason I think it's really important is because, especially as young dancers, like I see people who are interested in choreography going and doing that, and I see dancers interested in dancing going and pursuing that. But I think where the 2 things meet really crucially is that I think a great dancer and a great choreographer both have to be amazing creative thinkers and problem solvers. So this is why I set you something challenging, because even if you don't want to be a choreographer and you don't think it's interesting, having to do something like this, where the limitations are so high, the limitations are, I want you to dance without using your body. You know, I think for a lot of us, that is what dance is, right? It's a moment we experience with our body in front of people. And it's the people that are able to solve the problems and find creative solutions that I think make the best artists. So hopefully it's been useful and different. And if you've made something that you wouldn't have made before this workshop, or put some bullet points down for what you could make, then I think that's been a great success. So thank you so much for doing this workshop with me. If you've enjoyed it, please do engage with me and my work. I would love that. I have a website and I use Instagram and things like that. And also please engage with the Lowry, because we're doing stuff like this all the time and we're really keen to stay in conversation with you. And you can find us at Northwest Dance on all the social media platforms for You Dance and Cat and everything like that. Thank you very much for doing this. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to meet you in person at some point. Bye bye.